my name is Tiani and I'm a Year 11 student at Safety Bay Senior High School.
And my name is Aaliyah and I'm a Year 12 from Safety Bay Senior High School. For me, yes and could mean setting a goal for yourself to get towards a personal achievement.
Yes and for me is an opportunity to expand myself to get further than where I am now. I'm very excited to be a part of this today. It is a great experience.
This is a great way to boost my confidence and expand my networking skills.
Now it's my pleasure to hand it over to our host Dorcas to introduce herself.
Thank you, ladies. That was a beautiful introduction. My name is Dorcas Mapakela, and yes, I'm your host for this week. I'm super excited to be here. And yeah, the girls said it properly that this week we're looking at yes and. But just a quick reverse into what happened last week. We tackled the issue of change, and there was so much to learn because change is such a big subject. And one of the important things that I personally took from there is that, you know, it's while it's so big, it's absolutely important to do it. And the associate professor of social work from the University of Wollongong, Georgie, said something that truly stuck with me. He said, he said it's important to make a difference through our difference. So as a person, our uniqueness is our strength. And so I think as we look into this week's theme of yes and, it's important to remember that who we are as a person, whatever makes us unique, is truly special. And the theme of yes and to me means seizing the moment and having a growth mentality, a progressive mentality. You know, whatever challenges and opportunities that you meet, you should meet with yes. And what do we do next? And how do we move from this one? So if you embrace your difference and your uniqueness, you would be able to jump into that space. Not really easily, but it'll make it possible for you to jump into it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce, it's a big show today. We've got thinkers and we've got our partner school is Safety Bay Senior High School. And maybe I should welcome firstly our audience members. There's quite a few of them. So guys, if you want to take yourselves on mute just quickly and say a quick hello to the people.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Shane.
I'm Graham.
I'm Tanisha.
I'm Keegan.
I'm Noah.
Hello, I'm Courtney.
I'm Jada.
Hello.
Is that everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you guys tell me what you're hoping to learn from today's show?
I want to learn what yes and means.
Okay, that's a good one because it's actually a very tricky value to know about. So I hope our panelists will be able to help us with that as we go through the show. And does anyone in the group have an understanding of what that could mean at all?
Like believing in something or achieving goals or having hope.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, guys. I hope we. Ooh. Sorry, is somebody else still saying something? We good? Oh, we good. Alrighty. So before we get into our discussion, we have our principal online, John Triscari. Are you there? He keeps disappearing from the camera.
Egg.
Oh, John is here, everyone. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah. Are you ready for the 60-second challenge?
I'm extremely nervous.
Good. It's going to be a great one. All right. Shall we get the clock on? And let's get straight into it.
All right, so 60-second challenge. All right,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You want to answer them as fast as you can? I want to ask you lots of questions. All right. So, what is the perfect idea of happiness for you?
Fishing.
Which living person do you admire the most?
Michael Jordan.
What is the greatest adventure you've ever been on?
Coaching basketball at the Paralympics.
What or who is the greatest love of your life?
Oh, that's a tough one. I better say it's my current partner.
What do you consider your greatest achievement to be?
Surviving 43 years of teaching.
We're not that bad, God. And what's your motto?
Live for the moment.
Yeah, that's really good. All right. One more. And who are your heroes in life?
My heroes in life. Oh, that's a tough one. I think my heroes in life would be some of the greater coaches in basketball, because I spend a lot of time doing basketball in my spare time.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. That was great.
Oh,
You didn't do half bad.
not bad for an old bald bloke. Thank you.
Thank you, Shkari. Jump back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Sorry, I don't know what we're doing now.
Well, don't you worry. I know what we're doing now. Maybe we can ask the audience, guys, how do you think your deputy principal did?
10 out of 10.
Oh, woo! Give him a round of applause. John, well done. You represented your school really well. You made your students proud. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to come and be on the show today. And also just to thank you for supporting the work that we do at AIM and working with the kids at your school and being a role model to all of us. So thank you so much. And now let's move on to meet our thinkers today on the panel. And let's have some exciting discussion.
If you don't want to work, don't bother dreaming.
Shame is just nothing.
All of us are dealt different cards, and those cards can be awful, but it's what you do. You are responsible for your reaction.
Oh yeah, and I am super excited to introduce our today's panelists. We have Jeff Gomez, we have Candice Kruger, we also have Sophia Emberson Bain. And guys, welcome to the show. Let me begin with you, Candice. You do music. Music is your thing. But before we even get into what you do, maybe you should tell the people what you do, and then I will zero into what I would like to ask you. So over to you. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So during the day, I am a head of Department of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Perspectives at Beenleigh State High School. And then after school, during the holidays, during school holidays, or just after school in the afternoons, I am the founder and director of the Yugambeh Youth Choir, which is the Aboriginal children which sing in Yugambeh language of the Gold Coast, Logan and Scenic Rim in Queensland, in Southeast Queensland. So that's what I'm up to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I will swing back to you in a minute. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I'm Jeff Gomez. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Starlight Runner Entertainment. We're a production company. We're based in New York City, and that's where I'm talking to you from. And we are specializing in creating universes. We work with the big Hollywood studios and video game companies and toy companies to help them build out their fictional universes so that they play well across many different media platforms. We also use these techniques to help people doing geopolitical work and even work in Australia with universities such as Curtin in Perth.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I look forward to learning a little bit more about the interesting worlds that you create. But let's meet Sophia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Sophia?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am an actress. I've done film and TV projects like Aquaman and Neighbours, and just recently finished Harrow and projects like that. And then I'm also newly produced a news talk show program up in the Northern Territory called the NT Recap, and it kind of started as about a coronavirus. But yeah, so I'm an actress and a producer, I would say. But I also, before I did that, I forgot to mention before that I used to be a lawyer. So I kind of gave up law to do acting.
Amazing. That's a leap.
Yeah.
and you know, just while I'm with you, this week's theme is about yes and I think just when you mentioned how you've changed, you know, moved from law to acting, you know, I would say you probably moved to your passion. So my question to you would be, in terms of the idea of yes and, how have you implemented that in your space, in your career, and, you know, and being able to move from what you used to do and what you're now passionate about?
Yeah, great question. I used to always be, I did acting and law for a very long time, and I used to juggle the two of them for a very long time. I would sometimes have exams while I was on set, and I would have to be studying for my law exams while I was waiting to film or learning my lines and those types of things. And I always wanted to do acting, but I also wanted to, I mean, lots of people say have a fallback, which is true. I did want to have a fallback, but for me as well, I wanted to keep my brain ticking over, because acting is a very tough industry and you're not working all the time. And for me, law was another passion of mine. And I guess there came a point, which was about February this year, where I resigned my law job, and I thought, I'm going to give this a red hot go to just concentrate solely on my acting, because it was just getting too difficult to manage the two. So for me, I guess yes and was both a logical thing as well as an emotional thing, because logically it would be sensible to probably keep doing law as much as possible because it's a steady paycheck. But there came a point where emotionally it was just too difficult for me to do the two of them, because my heart wasn't in law, and I was getting very unhappy every day because I was doing something that I didn't want to do. But it was I'd say a 10-year decision in the making, so I didn't take it lightly. So I guess in terms of what yes and for me meant, it was a very long considered balance of what emotionally and logically was the sensible thing to do.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much for that. And congratulations on finally arriving, you know, onto something that you are truly passionate about and, you know, emotionally ready to embrace as well. So that's fantastic. And right now, I just want to quickly throw to Tiani and Ellie. Do you guys have any questions for our panelists at this point?
So I've got a question for you, Sophia. What's been your biggest acting project?
I would say, if I said I'm in Aquaman to someone, they automatically go, oh my God. So for other people, it's probably Aquaman because it's probably the biggest budget. But when you're on a really, really big show like that, you're generally a very small, tiny cog in the wheel. The scene that I was in was probably about maybe 1.5 minutes long. So it took about 1.5 pages. Generally, it's kind of like how long is the pages is roughly how long in minutes it is. And that took 2 days to film because they had so much money. So I was there for a long time for a very, very tiny short scene, but it's probably not my biggest job in terms of my personal career, doing much more smaller projects where you probably never heard of them. But for me, it was a growth and learning experience, and I got to really work with some great people and grow as a person. Aquaman probably wasn't that, but it's a good job so that people can go, oh my God, you were in that. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I've got a question for all of you, but for mainly Jeff. What has been your biggest yes and moment?
Wow, my biggest yes and moment was had to have been the work that I was doing with James Cameron on Avatar. The moment was when we first met the director, James Cameron. It was in his personal theater, and he showed my group, which included a bunch of people from 20th Century Fox, some very raw footage. It looked like a video game from the 1990s. And so the people, the executives who were with me didn't even know what they were looking at. They were like, what? This is the movie? This is Avatar? This is what we're paying $500 million for? And Cameron got up and said, well, what'd you think? And for me, I wasn't the number one person in that room, but I had to say basically yes, and I'm going to step up. I'm going to demonstrate to this director that I understood the pre-visualization process, and I understood in his mind what he saw on the screen, which was beautiful, breathtaking, that this movie was going to be wonderful. And although my voice cracked a little at first, I spoke and explained it to him and explained what I thought about it and how it worked thematically with the script, but also with his other movies, because of course I was a big fan. And he looked at me differently. And by the end of that meeting, he had hired me and my company, Starlight Runner Entertainment, to work on Avatar. So that was one of the biggest yes and moments of my career. And that yes and was the decision to open my mouth. I could have just shut up and it would have been over. I would have just left with everybody else. But I spoke and told him how I felt, and it changed my life.
Yeah. And for Candice, what's your biggest yes and moment?
Like Jeff, it was the moment that I had to step up, the yes and moment. I knew that I had to be the change that I wanted to see for my own community. So I haven't said so far that I'm a Yugambeh song woman. I'm my background, my father's heritage line is Kumba of the Gold Coast and Noongar Moreton Island. And in 2012, I was with a school group in America at the World Choir Games with a choir. And I saw African children singing in African languages and Chinese children singing in Mandarin. And I realized that I had already collected some of the songs because my grandfather had asked me to do it when I was only 23 years old. I'm now 48, and I at that time realized that I had these songs, and if that's what I was seeing and other countries were doing it, here I was standing in Ohio, and I had that moment of, I need to go home and be the change that I want to see. I need to see Aboriginal children learning to sing the songs of their heritage, and we need to Gideba, awaken them. So I came home and then approached community, and in 2014 was able to secure a spot at a school and in their school hall in the afternoon. And I waited, and it took me a couple of weeks to get one young girl, and with her and her mum, we had a great time on Friday afternoons for a few months. And then, you know, after a couple of months, I had a handful of kids. And then all of a sudden in 2015, we were performing on television to 1.5 million viewers for the Indigenous All-Stars NRL that happened to be on the Gold Coast. And, you know, fast forward, and we performed in the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games to 1 billion viewers. We have met Governor Generals, politicians, the Indigenous children of my region who participate in learning language and promoting their culture and language to a wider community, because the Gold Coast hosts so many international conferences. You know, we are just so lucky, and that's where we are. And in 2016, we won a Queensland Reconciliation Award as well. So for me, my yes and moment is I found that moment in my life that was both an educational moment that I had knowledge to move forward. Also, what I was gifted and given as a songwoman, an emerging songwoman in the community, and I married the two together to make change for my community.
Thank you. Thank you for both of you, Jeff and Candice. That was great. Sophie, have you got a yes and moment that you could share?
Yes. I think for me, it was a similar experience in terms of stepping up. I moved to the Northern Territory about 2 years ago when my husband's mum got sick, and so we moved up here, and being an actor, there's not very much work in the Northern Territory. Most of my work is mainly in Queensland. And so I was flying back and forward to film jobs and balance my legal career. But when coronavirus hit, I did it up here in the Northern Territory, and because there's not very much work up here, I was watching a lot of TV, and I'd quit my law job, and I was feeling very sad and glum because I'd quit my law job just before coronavirus, and there's no acting work. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to be working for a very long time. Silly me for quitting. And then I was watching a lot of television and realized that there was not very much information about what was happening in the Northern Territory, and lots of people were getting their news about coronavirus and the restrictions based on word of mouth, understanding from chatting with friends and stuff like that. And so I thought, hey, maybe I can make a difference and use my skills as being an actor to produce local content. So I produced this news talk show, and I've never done any production in my life. My husband doesn't know anything about producing because he's a carpenter builder. So I made him build the set. I then spoke with a production company to like get this idea together, and then we on to episode 2 at the moment. So it's begun. And so for me, that was a big stepping out of my comfort zone to do that. And I'm personally proud of myself for stepping up in that way, when I could have just done what I'm used to and wait for someone to give me a call to tell me I had a job.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. I'll throw it back to our lovely host now.
Thank you, girls, for leading that. That was amazing. And thank you to our panelists. That was so much. You know, I've got a whole lot of other questions, and I'm sure we'll learn about you, but I just want to quickly jump on our chat, and people are just like, Katarina saying, what an amazing panel. Brendan agrees with her. And Hannah James says, how cool, universe creation, law to action, education to music and language. So people are excited to hear from you guys. And just a quick question for Jeff. Marcus Bishop wants to know, what are the most important elements of a strong transmedia experience? Do you have any thoughts on how to walk the line between strong engagement and oversaturation?
Very, very good. The it's a great question. The best aspect of the things that make for the best transmedia storytelling is consistency and an emotional through line. Good transmedia storytellers have a deep understanding of the emotional essence of the whole storyline and the story world, and they understand fundamentally who the characters are, so that when they show up in the movie or the TV show or the comic book or the novel, there is a consistency. It feels like we're with the same friend or the same bad guy, if you will, as we move across different media platforms. The trick to getting it done truly well without oversaturating it is to make sure that the story arc, which doesn't matter how many different media it takes up, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end, so that we all can have a kind of a rest when it's done. So if you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is truly a transmedia masterpiece, where there was movies and Netflix shows and ABC shows and short films and just so many different things. It was in phases. There was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We're just starting phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And there are little rests that they give us in between these things so that it's not oversaturated.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. We've been educated, so we know, even though we can't tell while we're watching, but obviously a good one would be one that has all of those beautiful elements that Jeff, you have shared with us. I just want to ask you, Candice, you know, music is such a powerful tool to connect to ourselves, to connect to our ancestors, you know, to the higher power, whatever it is. And, you know, it's obviously your thing and it's moved you and it's your yes and moment. But when I was reading a bit about you, and I got to the part where, you know, one of the things that you're doing is gathering Aboriginal knowledge for sustainable legacy outcome. That just touched my heart because, you know, we all know that historically, you know, people would come from outside of our culture, come and learn about us, and then take those stories, water them down, make them palatable for themselves, and then come back and try to teach us about us. And that has to stop. And, you know, you're obviously doing that. And so I'm just interested to know, you know, what is your practice process and what truly drove you to start doing that?
Actually, I didn't really realize how much knowledge I had because I've just grown up with Aboriginal knowledge. You know, I thought that everybody knew that a yugari, which actually everybody calls a pipi, which is, you know, you go down to the edge of the water and you dig your feet in and you pull up a mussel, little butterfly mussel. So, you know, I just thought that my entire life that everybody knew that that was a yugari, but that's actually the Aboriginal word for it. It's, most people call it a pipi. And it was some of those aha moments that I had that I realized that I had all of this knowledge. And also the Australian curriculum changed, yay, and it needed educators to embed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives into their curriculum. And that's when my colleagues, because I'm a classroom music trained teacher, my colleagues started asking me for help and what could I give them and how could I assist them and could I write a little lesson to pop in, and that probably started 15 years ago. But it was those small moments along the way where, and also the moment that I told you about of establishing the choir, where I realized that one, I had a wealth of knowledge and a rich cultural background, and then two, that I could actually go and start to put some of these, I guess I call it jigsaw puzzling, go and find pieces and begin to put narratives back together. And the outcome for me of that is that when the judge and the children learn songs and narratives, or school children or teachers, they're actually getting the whole puzzle, the whole piece. So I'm doing, so it's as if their knowledge has never been, it hasn't lost generations along the way. Any song or story or narrative that I can put back together, and that's through, you know, really old archival records, anthropologists. It could be a forestry worker who came across Aboriginal people out of the minds of my elders, and just rich, deep conversations, and finding all of the layers of narrative and or a song, putting it back together, and then anybody who hears that from this moment forward knows the whole or the holistic story of what we know from this moment forward. So for me, it's yeah, there's just so much involved in what I do, and I'm actually currently studying as well my PhD. So hopefully by the end of this year, I'll be Dr. Kruger, and as an Indigenous ethnomusicologist, although I'm actually choosing to say a song woman, because I think that that's really important in our community, that we use that Yarrabil Gingun traditional term. And, you know, as an expert in my field, but my field of Yugambeh songlines and narratives, not necessarily all of Australia. All Aboriginal communities are different and have different knowledges and systems of the land that they live on. My land here, you know, goes from the ocean, all saltwater country, and includes freshwater country people all the way to Beaudesert and out to Warwick in the different language dialect area. So yeah, what I'm doing is trying to put those pieces of the puzzle back together so that we can move forward and know who we are and know some of our traditions of the land.
Amazing. I'm super excited to see, you know, what else you do, and hopefully you pave the way for, you know, young people coming behind you, and just, you know, to keep going and just building our own legacies and taking, you know, ownership of what it is that we want the future generations to learn. I just want to throw to the audience just quickly. Does anybody want to ask any questions, or anybody want to tell us if they've learned? Oh, somebody asked at the start, they want to know what yes and means. Can I ask if you've learned anything so far? Does it make any sense to you? Yeah. Who asked that question? Pardon, say again.
Yeah, I think I learned stuff about it.
That's fantastic.
Jeff, I just got a question for you. What's your favorite project to work on?
My favorite project to work on? Oh, well, that's easy. The ones that I create. So my favorite projects have included Magic the Gathering, based on the trading card game, because I got to adapt my Dungeons and Dragons campaign for the comic books. So I created a lot of characters and storylines that exist in the Magic universe that were based on my own creations when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. Another favorite was Hot Wheels. I created the Hot Wheels animated series, World Race, again, based on my own creation. I made that up, and now you can see it on YouTube as an animated series. And I'm working on something right now that I'm creating by myself, and I'm working with some wonderful people, and hopefully I'll be able to announce that soon. Oh, Ultraman is also super cool. I'm working on Ultraman right now, the Japanese superhero.
Wow, you know, Jeff, we also have a thing that we call Game of Life here at AIM, and it's a magical world. You know, it's all about imagination. The students know about it, I think, and at the moment we played every Thursday morning. I think we should invite you to join us one Thursday, and we can all go into the world of.
Wow, of course, I would be glad to. Amazing.
Well, be on a lookout for an invite, because we would definitely love to, you know, to include you in it. Now, our wonderful co-hosts, Tiani and Ellie, do you guys have any final words, any final questions that you want to ask before we close off?
No questions from us, but just a thank you to all the panelists. That was great. And our live audience for and contributing.
Oh no, I think we have a little audio issue. but I'm sure the girls will come back. They're a little bit frozen, but you know, they were obviously wanting to thank every single person who's participated today. So Jeff, Candice, and Sophia, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. It's truly been incredible to be in your company. Thank you, students, our lovely audience. Thank you so much for being here today. Maybe unmute yourself just quickly, or are you also frozen? Yeah, I think they're frozen as well.
Oh,
but
boy.
yeah, everyone's frozen. It's over. But thank you so much, Safety Bay Senior High School, and thank you to Deputy Principal John Triscari for joining us today. And to take us to the end of the show, we're gonna watch an interview that our CEO Jack did with Ben Lee. So hope everyone has learned a bit about what it means, you know, the value of yes and, because I know I've learned so much more, and I'm super excited to learn even more tomorrow when we have young stars on the show. So be sure to tune in again tomorrow. And from all of us, it's goodbye.
Ben, welcome to AIM TV in Los Angeles. Can you take us back in time and walk down memory lane as to how you've ended up sitting here on the couch in AIM TV land and what your journey's been to date?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really part of this project because it resonates with my values. I'm interested in, even from when I started playing music, I started at 14 years old. And I remember I stepped out on stage at one of our first gigs and the audience just looked up like, who is this kid and what's going on? And they were confused. And what I fell in love with at that moment was the sense that people's minds can be blown. What I felt drawn to about this project was it's about blowing minds. It's about expanding the sense of possibility. It's about taking the sort of limitations off what people see as their reality or what their options are, and just being involved with like minds that want to decide you're at the end of the journey, then you've capped it at failure.
What's happening inside you that pushes you, do you think? Why are you willing to put yourself out there and to try and break new molds or see new things? Do you think that's a normal thing, or is it something that's unique, or is it something that can be learned?
I think everybody feels it. I think any kid watching this feels they're being called to be something bigger than they can even quite imagine. You know, I love that song, The Rainbow Connection by Kermit. So this is a kid's song from The Muppet Show, right? And he said, have you been half asleep and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. I've heard them too. Manifesting your personal destiny is for people that are willing to look foolish. There are certain mistakes I'm going to need to make by actually making them. I can't think and theorize and try and avoid them. They need to be made. So my theory's always been, let's start making them. Let's make them quickly and get them out of the way.
For you, moving on the journey that you've been on, Ben, what do you think is allowing you to still stay positive and hopeful and energetic about things?
Obviously, there are social inequalities that we want to do the best we can to correct so that those external opportunities are available to everybody across the board. But that being said, so many of the greatest minds of humanity have come out of adversity. So it clearly isn't really an impediment in restricting the human spirit. The human spirit, the human mind is incredible. It sometimes actually uses those experiences as fuel to do great acts for humanity. So I was born with a happy disposition, but I've chosen to cultivate it. I've also had things happen in my career. You don't get to 25 years in the music industry and just on smooth sailing. It is a decision to continue to try again, become a value-adding person that every conversation you get into, you add something to. When you walk into a room at a party, people go, oh man, there's Bob. So glad he's here. Can't wait to talk to him. Be someone that adds and you'll find amazing opportunities open up.
Ben, thank you for being someone who's added to so many people's lives, and thank you for
30
joining us
seconds
on
credits.
MTV. That's us over and out. Go ahead,
Thank
brother.
you.
Thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
man. Appreciate
See you
it.
guys. Peace out.
5, 4, 3,